dive into today's episode, I just want to remind you to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support means the world to us. It helps us grow, reach more amazing learners like you, and keep bringing you fresh and fun content every week. So don't forget, like, subscribe, and let's keep this journey going strong. Hello, wonderful idiom explorers, and a very warm welcome back to another exciting episode of Idiom Insights. I'm Emma, your enthusiastic guide, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be here with you again, ready to delve even deeper into the fascinating nuances and origins of some more common English phrases. It's always such a pleasure to share this learning journey with all of you as we collectively navigate the vibrant and often wonderfully quirky, colorful world of English.
And I'm Jack, your co-host and ever-curious word detective, always here to help unravel the meanings and perhaps share a chuckle or two as we explore the incredibly rich and diverse landscape of idiomatic English. It's truly wonderful to be back in the Idiom Insights studio, Emma, and a big hearty hello to all our fantastic listeners joining us from every corner of the globe. Thank you so much for tuning in for another dose of exhilarating idiom discovery.
It's always a genuine joy, Jack. Today, we've selected 4 incredibly useful and particularly vivid idioms that you'll undoubtedly encounter frequently in everyday English conversations, in films, books, and online. Understanding these will not only significantly boost your comprehension skills, but also provide you with more natural, nuanced, and expressive ways to communicate your own thoughts, feelings, and observations. These carefully chosen phrases cover the important concepts of backing up words with action, the crucial moment of finalizing agreements, the unfortunate situation of blaming others unfairly, and the difficult act of abandoning someone in a time of need.
A truly excellent and wonderfully varied mix today, Emma. These are certainly idioms that really add significant character, color, and depth to any conversation, allowing for more sophisticated expression. Here are the 4 idioms we'll be diving into in this episode of Idiom Insights. First, an idiom that often serves as a direct challenge, urging someone to back up their words with tangible action or a significant investment. Put your money where your mouth is. Second, a very common phrase for finalizing an agreement or making it definitively official, seal the deal. Third, an expression for a person or entity who is unfairly blamed for the mistakes, failings, or wrongdoing of others, often to deflect responsibility, scapegoat. And finally, an idiom for abandoning someone, often a friend or colleague, when they are in a difficult situation and desperately need help or support. Leave someone in the lurch.
Those are all fantastic and very common idioms, Jack. Each one paints a very clear and evocative picture in the mind, and they are used with such frequency that understanding them will be incredibly beneficial for our listeners as they engage in English conversations and encounter these phrases in various forms of media. Mastering them will definitely elevate their English proficiency.
I couldn't agree more, Emma. They're all very practical, insightful, and add a real flair to the language. And before we delve into the fascinating intricacies of our first idiom, a quick and sincere request from both of us here at Idiom Insights. If you're finding these episodes valuable for your English learning journey and you genuinely enjoy our explorations into the world of words, please take just a moment to subscribe or follow our podcast on your preferred listening platform.
Yes, subscribing is truly the best way to ensure you don't miss any of our future idiom adventures and linguistic discoveries. We have so many more fascinating phrases lined up to explore. And if you're feeling extra supportive, a like or a positive rating on your podcast platform truly helps other English learners discover Idiom Insights. We are so incredibly grateful for your engagement and continued support. It really fuels our passion for creating this content and sharing it with you.
It genuinely makes a massive difference to us and helps our community grow. Thank you all for being part of our enthusiastic learning community. Right then, Emma, are you ready to tackle our first idiom, which certainly sounds like a direct and rather forceful challenge?
Let's absolutely do it! Our first idiom for this episode of Idiom Insights is, put your money where your mouth is.
Put your money where your mouth is. This sounds quite confrontational, Emma. Like you're telling someone to stop just talking and actually do something tangible to back up their claims, perhaps involving a financial commitment or some other demonstrable action. Is that the central idea?
That's exactly the essence of it, Jack. The idiom "put your money where your mouth is" essentially a challenge issued to someone, urging them to back up their words, bold claims, or boasts with concrete, demonstrable action, especially by risking or investing their own money or significant resources. It means, don't just talk endlessly about how great something is or how confident you are. Prove it by taking real, substantial action or making a tangible financial commitment that shows you truly believe what you're saying.
So it's really about demanding clear proof of sincerity or deep conviction through action, often, though not exclusively, financial action. If someone is constantly talking about what a great business idea they have, detailing its potential for months or even years, but never actually takes any steps to start it, a friend might eventually challenge them by saying, "If you're so sure it will succeed and revolutionize the market, why don't you put your money where your mouth is and invest some of your own savings to get it started, or at least develop a prototype?"
Precisely. That's a perfect application. Or consider if someone is always boasting about how exceptionally good they are at predicting sports results, but never actually places any bets or enters any competitions. You might eventually tell them to put their money where their mouth is. It's a direct call to demonstrate genuine belief and commitment through tangible action, rather than just making empty claims, pronouncements, or idle boasts. It calls for substance over mere words.
It strongly implies that talking is easy, perhaps too easy, but taking concrete action or making a real personal investment, whether it's money, time, or effort, is what shows true belief or unwavering commitment. It's a very effective way to call someone's bluff if you suspect they are just talking big without any real intention to act or follow through.
Yes, it often carries that distinctly challenging, sometimes even skeptical tone. It's essentially saying, if you truly and deeply believe what you're saying with such conviction, then show us, prove it to us, by taking a measurable risk or making a significant sacrifice. It's about compelling a move from mere words and rhetoric to actual, impactful deeds.
So, for instance, if a politician makes grand, sweeping promises about improving public services like healthcare or education, but then doesn't allocate any new budget to those specific areas, discerning voters might rightly demand that they put their money where their mouth is by actually funding those promised improvements and demonstrating a real commitment.
Exactly. It's fundamentally about aligning one's actions directly with one's assertions, particularly when significant money, substantial effort, or personal reputation is involved. It's a call for integrity and follow-through.
Okay, so put your money where your mouth is a clear challenge to someone to back up their words or claims with concrete, visible action, especially by investing their own money or resources. Are you ready to hear Mia and Mark use this idiom in a practical context?
Let's definitely listen in. I wonder who is being challenged to prove their conviction in their scenario.
Mark, you know how our friend David is always talking, almost incessantly, about how he's going to become a famous app developer and create the next big social media platform? He's been saying it for years now, at every social gathering.
Oh yes, David and his grand app ideas. He certainly has an abundance of enthusiasm when he talks about them, painting these incredibly vivid pictures. He describes all these amazing, groundbreaking features and how his app is going to revolutionize communication or online interaction.
Exactly. But the thing is, Mark, he never actually does anything concrete about it. He talks a great game. He passionately tells everyone who will listen how brilliant his concepts are and how they'll change the world. But he's never, to my knowledge, written a single line of code or even seriously tried to create a detailed business plan for any of them.
That's undeniably true. It's all been talk so far, just aspirations and dreams. It makes you wonder how much he truly believes in these ideas himself, deep down. If he's so utterly convinced they're going to be massive, game-changing successes, you'd think he'd be working day and night on them, or at least actively trying to find some initial investment or a co-founder.
Precisely my point. I almost feel like telling him directly, David, if you're so incredibly confident about these amazing app ideas and their potential, it's high time to put your money where your mouth is. Stop just endlessly talking about it and actually invest some of your precious time, or even a little of your own savings, into developing a functional prototype or at least learning the basics of coding. Actions, as they say, speak much louder than words after all.
That was a perfect and very relatable example. Mia clearly expressed her desire to challenge David to put his money where his mouth is regarding his ambitious app ideas, meaning he should stop just talking about them endlessly and actually take concrete, tangible steps, like investing his own time or money to prove his conviction and begin the process of making them happen.
Exactly. The idiom perfectly captured the growing frustration with David's prolonged lack of action despite his consistently confident talk, and it underscored the implicit demand for him to demonstrate genuine, unwavering commitment through tangible effort or a personal investment.
It's a very common and remarkably effective way to challenge someone to move beyond mere words and demonstrate real intent.
It certainly is. So, next time you hear someone making big claims or impressive boasts without taking any corresponding action, you might think to yourself that they really need to put your money where their mouth is.
And we'd love to hear about a time you felt someone needed to put their money where their mouth is, or maybe a time you bravely did it yourself and took the plunge. Share your interesting stories in the comments section below this episode.
That's a great idea, Jack. Let's move on now to our second idiom in this episode of Idiom Insights. This one is all about finalizing things, bringing them to a conclusion.
Our second idiom today, which you'll hear quite often in business and negotiations, is seal the deal.
Seal the deal. This phrase strongly sounds like it means to make an agreement official or truly final, perhaps metaphorically like putting a wax seal on an important contract to authenticate it. Is that the general idea, Jack?
You've hit the nail squarely on the head, Emma. To seal the deal means to make an agreement, contract, negotiation, or arrangement official, legally binding, or definitively complete. It means to finalize something that has been negotiated or discussed at length, often by signing a formal contract, making a crucial payment, or sometimes even with a firm handshake that confirms the mutual agreement. The seal historically referred to a wax seal, often impressed with a signet ring or stamp, used to authenticate important documents, thereby making them official and tamper-proof.
So it's specifically about that final conclusive step that makes an agreement fully confirmed and irrevocable. For example, if two large companies have been meticulously negotiating a complex merger for many months, going back and forth on terms, and they finally sign all the necessary legal documents, they have effectively sealed the deal. The agreement is now completely official and legally binding.
Precisely, that's a classic example. Or if you're in the process of buying a house, after all the property inspections, price negotiations, mortgage arrangements, and endless paperwork, when you finally sit down and sign the closing documents and happily receive the keys, you have successfully sealed the deal. The purchase is complete, and the house is yours. It often implies the successful and often much anticipated conclusion of a sometimes lengthy period of discussion, negotiation, or effort.
It certainly sounds like it often involves a formal action, like signing something legally binding, but it can also be used in more informal contexts, right? For instance, if two friends agree in principle to go on holiday together and they then proceed to book the flights and accommodation, booking those flights could be seen as the action that seals the deal on their holiday plans, making them concrete.
Yes, absolutely. You're quite right. While it frequently relates to significant business transactions or formal legal agreements, its usage can be extended more broadly to any arrangement that is made definite, firm, and confirmed. The key element is that it's the specific action or event that makes the agreement final and unalterable. It's the point of no return, in a way, solidifying the commitment.
So, if a professional sports team is trying to sign a highly sought-after star player, and after long and perhaps tense negotiations, they finally agree on all the contract terms and the player puts their signature on the dotted line, that crucial signature effectively seals the deal.
Exactly. The agreement is now locked in, confirmed, and everyone can move forward based on that finalization.
So, to seal the deal means to make an agreement, contract, or arrangement official, binding, and complete, marking the end of negotiations. Ready to hear Mia and Mark use this idiom in their conversation?
Let's definitely listen in. I wonder what important agreement they might be finalizing in their discussion.
Mia, I've been interviewing candidates for that new senior marketing manager position all week long, and it's been quite a process, but I've finally found someone who I think is absolutely perfect for the role. Her experience is truly fantastic, and she really impressed everyone on the interview panel with her insights and demeanor.
Oh, that's genuinely great news, Mark. It's always such a relief to find a strong, suitable candidate after what can be a long and arduous search. So, have you made her an official offer yet?
Yes, we discussed the salary, benefits package, and start date yesterday afternoon. And she seemed very happy and enthusiastic about the comprehensive package we proposed. She said she needed to think it over for a day and discuss it with her family, which is perfectly understandable, but she sounded very positive and keen.
So, what's the next crucial step in the process? Are you just waiting for her formal, written acceptance to make it all official?
Pretty much, yes. She's promised to email me her official acceptance by the end of today. Once I receive that email clearly confirming she's taking the job, that will officially seal the deal. Then, and only then, can we start the onboarding process, prepare her workspace, and joyfully announce her appointment to the wider team. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that it all goes through smoothly.
That's very exciting. I sincerely hope she accepts and you can seal the deal today without any hitches. It sounds like she'd be a great asset to the company and the marketing department.
That dialogue perfectly and clearly illustrates the idiom. Mark explained that receiving the candidate's formal email acceptance would effectively seal the deal for her employment, meaning it would finalize the agreement conclusively and make her hiring official and irreversible.
Exactly. The idiom was used very aptly to describe the final, decisive action that would make the arrangement for her employment entirely conclusive and thoroughly confirmed. It highlighted the successful culmination of the often challenging hiring process.
It's a very common and extremely useful idiom for describing the finalization of almost any kind of agreement or negotiation.
It truly is. So, next time an agreement is made official and complete, when all parties are satisfied and committed, remember that they have sealed the deal.
And we'd love to hear about a time you successfully sealed a deal. What was the agreement about? What did it take to finalize it? Share your experiences and triumphs in the comments below the episode.
That's a wonderful idea, Jack. Let's move on now to our third idiom in this insightful episode of Idiom Insights. This one describes someone who is unfairly blamed for the faults of others, a rather unfortunate situation.
Our third idiom for today, and it's a powerful one, is scapegoat.
Scapegoat. This is a very interesting and evocative term. It sounds like it involves an actual goat somehow in its origins. What exactly does it mean when someone is referred to as a scapegoat, Jack?
It is indeed a very interesting term with quite ancient and significant origins, Emma. A scapegoat is a person, or sometimes a group or even an abstract entity, who is unfairly and unjustly blamed for the mistakes, wrongdoings, misfortunes, or failures of others. They are made to take the entire blame, often to deflect attention and responsibility from the real culprits, or to provide a convenient, sometimes vulnerable target for collective anger, frustration, or disappointment. The term originates from an ancient Hebrew ritual described in the book of Leviticus in the Bible, where on the Day of Atonement, a goat was symbolically burdened with the sins of the entire community and then sent out into the wilderness to die, thus metaphorically carrying away the sins and purifying the people.
So it's fundamentally about someone being unjustly punished or blamed for things they didn't actually do, or for complex problems that are much larger and more systemic than their own individual responsibility. For example, if a large company is performing badly due to a series of poor strategic management decisions made at the highest level, the senior management might decide to fire a junior employee and publicly blame them for all the problems, effectively making that employee a scapegoat to avoid taking responsibility themselves and to appease shareholders.
Precisely. That's a classic corporate example. Or consider a sports team. If the team loses a very important game, frustrated fans or critical media outlets might unfairly blame one particular player for the entire loss, even if many different factors and multiple errors contributed to the defeat. That player then becomes the scapegoat. It's often about finding an easy, visible target to blame when things go wrong, rather than undertaking the more difficult task of addressing the real, often complex and multifaceted underlying causes.
It sounds like a very unfair and often incredibly cruel thing to do to someone. Being made a scapegoat means you are essentially suffering for the faults, incompetence, or malice of others, carrying a burden that isn't yours.
It absolutely is. The individual or group chosen as the scapegoat is often someone who is vulnerable, less powerful, an outsider, or simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, making them an easier and less risky target for blame. The act of scapegoating is fundamentally about avoiding accountability and maintaining a facade of competence or control by shifting blame onto a less powerful entity.
So, if a government policy leads to widespread economic problems or social unrest, the government might actively try to find a scapegoat. Perhaps another country, a specific demographic group, or a previous administration to blame for the ensuing problems, instead of admitting their own policy failures or misjudgments.
Exactly. It's a common, though lamentable, political tactic to divert public anger, criticism, and scrutiny away from those truly responsible.
So, a scapegoat is a person or group unfairly blamed for the mistakes, failings, or wrongdoing of others, often to protect the real culprits. Ready to hear Mia and Mark use this rather unfortunate but important term?
Let's listen in carefully. I wonder who is being unfairly blamed in their discussion and why.
Mark, did you hear about the recent serious issues with the new software rollout in the finance department? Apparently, there have been a lot of disruptive glitches, system crashes, and significant data errors ever since it went live last week.
Oh yes, I heard it's been causing quite a few major headaches and disruptions for them. It's a big, complex new system, so some initial teething problems are probably to be expected with any major implementation, but it sounds like these issues are much more serious and persistent.
Well, what I heard through the grapevine, Mark, is that senior management is apparently putting all the blame squarely on David, the relatively junior IT technician who was assigned to provide support to the finance team during the rollout phase. They're reportedly saying it's his fault the entire system isn't working properly.
On David? But he's just a junior IT technician. Surely the ultimate responsibility for a major company-wide system implementation lies with the dedicated project managers, the experienced software developers, and the senior IT leadership who signed off on it. It sounds very much like they might be making him a scapegoat to cover their own shortcomings.
It's exactly what I thought when I heard it. It seems incredibly unfair and disproportionate to blame him for systemic issues with a huge, newly implemented software package. It's undoubtedly far easier for them to point the finger at a junior employee who has less power to defend himself than to publicly admit there were fundamental flaws in the planning, testing, or the software itself. Poor David is probably feeling absolutely terrible and completely overwhelmed.
He must be feeling dreadful. It's a classic, unfortunate case of finding a convenient scapegoat to avoid taking responsibility for a larger, more embarrassing failure. That's not right at all, and it's terrible for morale.
That dialogue perfectly and vividly illustrates the idiom. Mia and Mark discussed how David, a junior employee, was being unfairly blamed for major, systemic problems with a new software system, strongly suggesting he was being made a scapegoat by senior management to deflect responsibility from themselves and their decisions.
Exactly. The idiom clearly captured the inherent injustice of blaming a relatively powerless individual for what were likely complex, systemic failures. It effectively highlighted how someone was being made to carry the heavy burden of blame for others' mistakes or poor planning.
It's a very common and, unfortunately, very relevant concept in many areas of life, from the workplace to politics and beyond.
It certainly is. So, next time you see someone being unfairly blamed for the faults or failures of others, especially if they are in a less powerful position, you might recognize them as a scapegoat.
And we'd love to hear your thoughts on the phenomenon of scapegoating. Have you ever witnessed it firsthand? Why do you think it happens so frequently in various contexts? Share your insightful perspectives in the comments below the episode.
That's a wonderful idea for discussion, Jack. Now, we've arrived at our fourth and final idiom for this episode of Idiom Insights. This one describes the act of abandoning someone when they are in a particularly difficult or vulnerable situation.
Our final idiom for today, which describes a rather unkind act, is leave someone in the lurch.
Leave someone in the lurch. This phrase immediately sounds like a very unpleasant and distressing situation for the person who is left. What exactly does it mean to leave someone in the lurch, Jack?
It is indeed a very unfortunate and often distressing position to be in, Emma. To leave someone in the lurch means to abandon or desert someone, often abruptly when they are in a difficult situation, in serious trouble, or in desperate need of help or support, especially when you have a prior responsibility to help them, or they are clearly relying on your assistance. The lurch part historically referred to a predicament in certain old games, but now generally signifies a sudden, difficult, unsupported or awkward position.
So it's fundamentally about abandoning someone at a critical moment when they are vulnerable and heavily depending on your promised or expected support. For example, if you are working collaboratively on a group project with a very tight, immovable deadline, and one of your team members suddenly quits without finishing their crucial part of the work and without any warning, they have effectively left the rest of the team in the lurch, causing them to struggle to complete the entire project on time and potentially face negative consequences.
Precisely, that's a very clear example. Or if you promise to give a close friend a ride to an extremely important job interview or medical appointment, but then you don't show up at the agreed time and don't answer your phone, you have callously left them in the lurch, potentially causing them to miss their vital appointment and suffer significant repercussions. It strongly implies a betrayal of trust, a shirking of responsibility, or a lack of consideration for others.
It sounds somewhat similar in meaning to leave someone high and dry, which we discussed in a previous episode of Idiom Insights. Is there a subtle difference in nuance between the two, or are they largely interchangeable?
They are indeed very similar, Emma, and are often used interchangeably in many contexts. Both essentially mean to abandon someone in a state of difficulty or helplessness. Perhaps leave someone in the lurch emphasizes a bit more the idea of deserting them when they are mid-task, in the midst of an ongoing activity, or relying on immediate active support for something that is currently happening, often leaving them in an awkward, embarrassing, or suddenly unsupported situation. Leave someone high and dry, on the other hand, might emphasize more the resulting lack of resources, options, or means to cope after being abandoned. But the core meaning of abandonment in a difficult, unsupported situation is fundamentally the same for both.
That clarification makes a lot of sense. So, if a business partner suddenly disappears with all the company's operating funds just before a major, crucial deal is about to be signed, they have definitely left their other partners in the lurch, and most probably high and dry as well, financially speaking.
Absolutely. That would be a very serious and damaging act of desertion with severe consequences.
So to leave someone in the lurch means to abandon them, often unexpectedly, when they are in a difficult situation, in trouble, or in need of help, especially when they are relying on you or you have a duty to support them. Ready to hear Mia and Mark use this idiom in one of their scenarios?
Let's certainly listen in. I wonder who has been unfortunately abandoned in a tough spot in their story, and what the circumstances were.
Mark, I feel so absolutely awful. I was supposed to help my sister, Sarah, move into her new apartment this past weekend. She was really, truly counting on me because she doesn't own a car. And her new place is a third-floor walk-up, which means lots of stairs and heavy lifting.
Oh, that's a big, demanding job for sure. Moving is always incredibly stressful and physically taxing, even with help. So, did it all go smoothly in the end? Did you manage to get all her belongings moved in without too much trouble?
Well, that's precisely the problem, Mark. Something incredibly urgent and unavoidable came up at work late on Friday afternoon that I absolutely had to deal with immediately, and it ended up consuming my entire Saturday. I tried desperately to call Sarah multiple times to explain the situation, but my phone battery unfortunately died, and I didn't have my charger with me. By the time I finally managed to get through to her late last night, she had already struggled through most of the exhausting move by herself, with just a little bit of help from one kind neighbor for the heaviest items.
Oh no, Mia. That's terrible timing. So you basically, albeit unintentionally, left her in the lurch on her big moving day? She must have been so incredibly stressed, exhausted, and probably quite disappointed, especially if she was heavily relying on your promised help for the heavy lifting.
I know. I feel absolutely terrible about it, truly. I completely left her in the lurch at a time when she really needed me. She was surprisingly understanding and gracious when I finally explained everything. But I know it must have been an incredibly difficult and physically demanding day for her. I'm planning to go over to her new place today to help her unpack everything and apologize profusely for letting her down so badly. I really let her down.
That dialogue clearly and effectively illustrates the idiom. Mia openly admitted that due to unforeseen work issues and subsequent communication problems, she had unintentionally but undeniably left her sister in the lurch on moving day, effectively abandoning her when her help was most expected and critically needed for a difficult and strenuous task.
Exactly. The idiom perfectly captured the unfortunate sense of Sarah being deserted, and left to cope alone in a difficult and stressful situation, at a time when she was relying heavily on Mia's committed support. It also powerfully highlighted Mia's profound feeling of guilt for having let her sister down so significantly.
It's a very common and highly expressive idiom for describing that specific kind of abandonment in a time of need.
It certainly is. So, next time you hear about someone being deserted in a difficult situation when they urgently needed help or support, remember the evocative idiom, leave someone in the lurch.
And we'd love to hear if you've ever been left in the lurch, or perhaps a time you had to step in and help when someone else was unfortunately put in that position. Share your personal experiences and stories in the comments section below this episode.
We always appreciate reading your stories and insights. Well, Emma, we've explored 4 more really useful, practical, and insightful idioms in this engaging episode of Idiom Insights.
We certainly have, Jack. It's been another fascinating journey through the English language. Just to quickly recap for everyone tuning into Idiom Insights today, we learned
Put your money where your mouth is, which is a direct challenge to someone to back up their words or claims with concrete action or a significant investment.
seal the deal, meaning to finalize an agreement, contract, or arrangement, making it official and binding.
Scapegoat, which refers to a person or group unfairly blamed for the mistakes, failings, or wrongdoing of others, often to deflect responsibility.
And leave someone in the lurch, meaning to abandon or desert someone when they are in a difficult situation, in trouble, or in desperate need of help, especially when they are relying on you.
4 more fantastic and highly practical additions to your ever-expanding English idiom collection. Remember, listeners, the best way to truly master these nuanced phrases is to actively listen for them in everyday conversations, films, podcasts, and written texts, and then to gain confidence by consciously trying to use them yourself in appropriate situations. Don't be shy.
Absolutely. Consistent practice is indeed key. Don't be afraid to incorporate them into your speaking and writing whenever the context fits. The more you consciously use them, the more comfortable and natural they will feel, and the more fluent and expressive your English will become.
And if you enjoyed learning with us today, and we sincerely hope you did, please consider giving this episode of Idiom Insights a like and, if you have a moment, leaving us a positive review on your preferred podcast platform. Your wonderful support really helps other keen English learners find us and join our growing global community.
And please make sure you hit that subscribe or follow button for Idiom Insights so you don't miss any of our future episodes, where we'll continue to demystify the wonderful, occasionally witty, and always fascinating world of English idioms, bringing you more phrases to enhance your communication skills.
Thank you all so very much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure exploring these interesting and useful phrases with you.
Keep learning, keep listening, keep practicing, and we'll talk to you again next time on Idiom Insights.
Goodbye, everyone. Stay curious.
See ya! Happy idiom hunting!